Hello everyone, welcome to Season 2, Episode 1 of Tatami Room, Christmas and New Year's in Japan. This is your host, Martin. First off, I want to wish everyone a Happy New Year, Happy 2024. That's crazy, we're already in 2024. 2023 went by really fast for me, had a lot of things to do. But yeah, I hope everyone had a good vacation, you had some time to relax, had a good Christmas. Yeah, even if you're celebrating Orthodox Christmas, that's coming up right around the corner. So yeah, happy holiday season to everyone. So as I said, this is the first episode of Season 2, and so I want to talk a little bit about that and just kind of things that I have envisioned for the second season of Tatami Room. So there's not going to be any major changes, but the one big change that I guess I want to talk about is that I'm going to be cutting back to one episode every 2 weeks. I think one episode every week, it was just a lot, and I want to make sure that I'm putting out episodes that are really quality. For example, they all have current event sections, which if you've been listening, you know that they were kind of haphazardly strewn about, and there were definitely many episodes in fact, where I just didn't have the time or energy to prepare a current event section. So I want to be able to fix that. I want to make sure that I'm putting together a really good piece of content for you all, something that's really worth listening to. So yeah, that's kind of the biggest change. The other thing, and I think my podcast Tatami Room has been shifting in this direction for a bit now, but I want to move the focus away from me. So the first couple episodes, it was almost like a little journal. So I came to Japan. What's that like? What am I doing? I had to go through the typhoon. But over the last, I think since episode 11, I've been more focused on doing kind of pieces about culture or places and whatnot, and I want to continue doing that. So even though there's going to be a little update, I think, about me, because I think hopefully y'all care about what's happening in my personal life as well, but I want to make it more so that it's focused on food in Nishinomote, or different kind of cultural components, or Kagoshima, that kind of stuff, as opposed to just being about me. So I'm going to keep up that trend. Excuse me. So this episode, as the title suggests, I want to touch on Japanese New Year's and Christmas traditions, as well as highlight a little bit of my own Christmas and New Year's experience. I also want to apologize for going MIA the last few weeks, but I think last episode was it's about something like the 18th or something. But yeah, I traveled up to Tokyo, and then I ended up getting sick. You can still kind of hear it in my voice, so I apologize if I'm going to try not to cough into the microphone, but if that happens, apologies in advance, and you can kind of tell my voice is still a little scrappy. But yeah, so wasn't able to do the podcast, but I'm going to be back with a vengeance now and put out this episode. So yeah, so the Stoic quote for the week is by Diogenes, a controversial figure with a perhaps controversial quote. Poverty is a virtue which one can teach oneself. So I hesitated putting this quote in a little bit because I don't want to be seen as making light of the situation of people in poverty. I'm not trying to do that. I don't think either is the quote. For me, this quote really suggests that simple life has value, and money isn't that end-all be-all. And the reason I was kind of thinking about this quote was, here, I'll just share this anecdote with you all. So, as I suggested, I went up to Tokyo over Christmas, had a little bit of a vacation, and during that time, I met up with two of my acquaintances. I'm just going to call them acquaintances. Thought they were my friends, but apparently that's not the case in any way. Anyway, we met up for dinner, and I ended up picking up most of the bill for dinner. I don't know, that just kind of a habit ingrained in me by my mother, and I don't know, I just feel like that's what manners do. Anyway, so I picked up most of the tab, and we went to boba after. We get boba drinks, and one of my the person I was having dinner with, they were ordering, and so they ended up paying for it, and I'm trying to pay them back. And usually in Japan, and I mean, I would do this even if I'm not in Japan, but you kind of have this little thing like, if someone pays for you, you go, hey, like, no, I got you, and they're like, no, 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 don't mind, I don't mind, it's okay, and you do this little awkward dance back and forth for a little bit, and then you kind of relent, and you're like, oh, okay, thank you so much, that kind of vibe. That happens very frequently in Japan. So I did that. We did the I went up. I did the little dance. And first, this person said, "Oh no, it's okay." And I went one more time just for courtesy's sake. And then they responded with, "Well, I make more money than you." So, you can. I'm still kind of flustered repeating this comment because it's so appalling. It's something that you never think that you would hear from someone's mouth, especially not from someone who you thought was your friend, someone who I had even had romantic feelings for at some point, and they just hit me with that. Yeah, wow. Even just thinking back, I'm flustered, a little bit angry as well. But it is what it is. But anyway, that's why I was thinking about, well, hey, even if you make more money, there's virtue in living a more simple life, perhaps. Now, before I get to talking about Christmas and New Year's, I have a little personal update that I wanted to talk about. You already know that I went on vacation to Tokyo. I was actually I went to Tokyo, but I was also in Yokohama and Kawasaki as well. I'm going to speak more about these travels in the next episode coming up, just about my tourist experience, recommendations, and whatnot. And finally, this is perhaps the most exciting announcement or update of all. And maybe I should have waited with episode 18, post jet plans. But I was recently, in December, accepted into the University of Chicago's law school program, which I'm very happy about. I applied early decision, and I accepted the offer. So what this means is I'm going to be leaving the JET program. I recently turned in that paper as well in early August, and I will be back in the States, in Seattle for a bit, before I ship out to Chicago. Very thankful for this opportunity. I mean, it's been a dream of mine since I was young, and sometimes it still doesn't feel quite real, that I'm going to be going to such a good law school. So thank you to everyone who supported me, and even if you didn't support me, just thank you to everyone. I'm very, very thankful to be able to have such a great opportunity. And like I mentioned in the last episode, even if I'm going back to the U.S., I think I want to keep doing Tatami Room. And that's going to be more in line with the theme that I talked about earlier, where it's not going to be about me as much as like, okay, I'm going to be going back to Seattle. I might even stop by for vacation in Hungary before I go to Chicago, but then I'll talk about Hungary. Perhaps an episode in Hungarian or a section Hungarian is warranted if I'm there. And talk about Chicago as well, because I don't think I have a lot of listeners from Chicago, so I'm sure y'all would be interested to know what that's like, as well as like things about law school. So hoping to continue to Tommy Room. Fear not, it is. I think it's here to stay. Any case, let's cut to a little break, and I'll be right back. All right, welcome back, everyone. I wanted to talk about Christmas and New Year's here in Japan. Just re-recording this section because a little bit earlier I was interrupted by the town bell that signals noon. So here's take two. But let's start off with Christmas. So the similarities, I would say, between Christmas in Japan and let's say Christmas in the U.S. is, Santa comes with his sleigh. You have reindeers, and he puts the present under the Christmas tree. There's decorations like wreaths and Christmas lights, and Christmas lights here are called illumination, I believe. And some houses were actually pretty decked out in like Christmas lights. I think it was kind of like a all or nothing. Like if you had Christmas lights, you went hard. Like there were some really well decorated houses, and then there were other houses that had virtually zero decorations. I'm going to kind of tell on myself, but yeah, I didn't have any Christmas decorations really, so I wasn't very much in the spirit. But anyway, that's kind of the process works the same, where you got Santa, the presents are coming, the decorations and whatnot. So the first difference is the food. So you might have heard of this, but yes, in Japan they eat fried chicken for Christmas. In fact, KFC is very popular. I think we imported some of the stores would import KFC onto the island. We don't have a KFC on the island. They would import KFC, and those buckets would be, snapped up, real quick. But yeah, fried chicken, even if it's not KFC, that stuff's all gone. Everyone's buying that. Yeah. So I thought that was interesting because I don't know what other people in the U.S. really eat for Christmas, but I know that my family doesn't eat fried chicken. We have I've had duck in the past, or I think Christmas ham is popular for other people. Anyway, that was interesting. And the other interesting thing is Christmas cake. So cake is also very popular during Christmas. I feel like that's not a thing in America. At least not with my household. Like we would have gingerbread and whatnot. I never really heard of a Christmas cake. I don't know if that's in the zeitgeist, and I just don't know it. But yeah, so Christmas cake and Christmas chicken are kind of big food differences, I would say. And I guess even if there is cake in the U.S. for Christmas, I wouldn't say it's that big of a thing. Versus here in Japan, no, it's that's kind of the tradition. You eat chicken and cake. So those are the two things that are kind of almost like a must. Also, presents or present. In Japan, a lot of people were telling me that they only get one present. So I think in America, there's a bunch of presents in your stockings and under the tree and whatnot. Versus here in Japan, you get one present. I do think though that that one present is a quote unquote big present. If I had to talk about my experience, I usually would have only one bigger present, sometimes two, if I behaved that year. But and then there'd be some smaller presents like a book, or a piece of clothing or something like that. And I'm not trying to say those are small presents, but if looking at kind of the dollar value of the gifts, there would be one kind of outlier, is what I'm trying to say. Versus here in Japan, usually there's only one, and I think that one present though is a kind of a well thought out one. Let's just say that. Finally, I titled this the vibe, but the vibe is different. The feeling is different, because in the U.S., for example, you would celebrate Christmas with your family. It's a very kind of family-oriented holiday, right? And in Japan, it's not that family-oriented. It's more of you go with your friends. It's more of a party vibe. Or being with your significant other vibe rather than being with your family. So instead of, for me on Christmas, it's always, okay, just family and it's just us gathering around the tree and whatnot. Here in Japan, it's no, it's more of a party, or you gather, you go out to dinner with your significant other, take them out to some nice fried chicken. So yeah. And finally, is Christmas isn't a real holiday here. And what I mean by that is you don't get a day off, right? Even though it's a holiday and people celebrate it, it's not a, I guess, national holiday. Whereas I think in the US, you get like both Christmas Eve and Christmas Day off if those are not on weekends. So yeah, no free days off. Now, shifting over to New Year's, the similarities are that you're still going to have your countdown parties, your fireworks, and no secret, it's also on the 31st. There's I don't. There's not like Chinese New Year's. I think they go. It's the same calendar. So yeah, it's that kind of countdown fireworks on the 31st. Very much the same. The difference is. Again, I put the vibe or the feeling, or rather who you celebrate with, because I think it's kind of flipped. So for New Year's, instead of, in America, New Year's, I've spent the last couple of New Year's with my friends, and, we'd have a party, and, we'd have a good time, watch a bunch of movies, do the countdown, that kind of vibe. Versus here, New Year's is more of a time to be with your family. So, a lot of my friends, I was in Tokyo during this time, and I was like, "Hey, what are y'all doing?" And they said, "Oh, well, I'm gonna go spend some time with my grandpa," or something like that. And so it's that kind of a holiday, or that kind of a day here in Japan, where on the 31st you go visit your grandparents and whatnot, and it's more family oriented. Essentially, there's less parties and you're more just chilling at home. I talked to one of my friends from work, and they said, yeah, I just stayed home, watched a movie, nothing special. And the other alternative that you do is people go to shrines on New Year's. So the 31st and the 1st, I visited some shrines, but they were jam-packed, there were a lot of people at those shrines. It's when you get kind of your blessing for the new year and whatnot. So yeah, it's if I had to compare the two together, Christmas and New Year's, it's almost like they're flipped in Japan, where New Year's is more like a celebration party kind of atmosphere, and less a family atmosphere like it would be in the U.S. And then New Year's is more of a family atmosphere, versus in the US, I think it's more of a party atmosphere. And this is just my own experience. I don't know, maybe some Japanese people can refute me on this, but this is kind of the overwhelming sense that I got from spending Christmas and New Year's over here. With that being said, let's cut to the current event section. All right, welcome to the current events section. As promised, so today I wanted to talk about some unfortunate. I wish it was a kind of a happier and more upbeat current events section to start off the 2024 calendar year, but it's 2024 in Japan has been off to a rough start. So the first thing that I wanted to talk about was an earthquake. This earthquake was 7.6 in magnitude. It was quite severe. This happened right on New Year's Day, so January 1st, at about 4:10 local time here in Japan. And it happened in Ishikawa Prefecture, and Suzu and Wajima towns were the hardest hit. Just to give you some context, I was in Tokyo, and Ishikawa is kind of more north, so it's on the kind of upper northern or western side of the island, whereas Tokyo is kind of on the southern. Yeah, so I wasn't close to it. I thought I did feel some tremors, but maybe that was just me, or maybe it was a separate earthquake. Japan has a lot of just kind of smaller earthquakes that happen all around. So, but yeah. So fortunately, I was safe. My friends were safe. But yeah, that's unfortunately the same can't be said for some other people. 82 people at this point have lost their lives so far in this earthquake, and many more remain trapped under the rubble. and I was watching. When there's an earthquake, there's usually a kind of 72-hour critical period where after those 72 hours, the chances of finding someone alive kind of drop fairly drastically. So hopefully more people get found and there are more survivors. Right now, there's still about 30,000 people in shelters, and there's a lot of people with no water. Aid delivery is very difficult right now because of the terrain and roadblocks. So the earthquake kind of happened near a peninsula, and so a lot of coastal, small, windy roads, and so a lot of those were very much damaged, making kind of aid delivery virtually impossible. Not virtually impossible, but very difficult. I know it's being airlifted in, or the roads are being repaired as we speak. But yeah, that just kind of added to the tragedy. In 1981, there were kind of earthquake building standards introduced in Japan, but these were kind of the towns that I mentioned, Suzu and Wajima, which were the hardest hit, or very old towns where the population was quite elderly, and so either they didn't have the fund. Yeah, there's a lot of homes that were not renovated to meet these earthquake safety standards, and a lot of buildings ended up collapsing, unfortunately. The problem is, or sadly, excuse me, the year does not get any better, because about 24 hours after that, on January 2nd, 2024, at about 6 p.m. local time in Japan, two planes crashed into each other and 5 people lost their lives. This happened at Haneda Airport in Tokyo, and initially I found out about this because my mother texted me, because I was flew out of Narita Airport, another airport near Tokyo, and I flew out the same day, and she texted me asking if I was okay, because at that point there wasn't much information on when and which plane had crashed, and fortunately I was at a different airport. And I realized that one of my friends actually was at Haneda. They were flying back to the U.S. that same day, but fortunately they were able to fly out about 2 hours before this crash happened. So basically, what happened when these two planes crashed, there's one bigger, a JAL, so Japan Airlines, bigger passenger plane, and it was landing. Fortunately, everyone made it out of this bigger plane safe, although it was a close call. Like, the entire plane ended up burning down. For a little bit, the captains didn't even realize that there was a problem until the flight attendants told them that, hey, there's smoke coming out of the engines. And so the plane that this bigger JAL passenger plane crashed into was a smaller Coast Guard plane. Unfortunately, 5 out of the 6 people on board lost their lives. The captain did end up surviving. And just kind of to add insult to injury, this plane was bound for Ishikawa Prefecture. It was a plane that was intended to deliver supplies to the earthquake victims. So just even more of a problem. Apparently, the JAL flight was cleared to land. This was apparent on the communications that were kind of uncovered after the accident. But the Coast Guard plane was told to wait at a holding point. Either they mistook where the holding point was, or they didn't follow this order, because they crashed into each other on the runway. The captain of the surviving captain for the Coast Guard plane did say that they were cleared for takeoff, which is odd because the transcript shows that they were told to wait. So, my thoughts go out to all the people who lost their lives and their families. It's really kind of a tough time, and I'm hoping that the year turns around, 2024 turns around, but it's off to a rough start. First with an earthquake and a terrible accident after that. Yeah, I don't know. Hopefully I'm able to come back and report on some more upbeat current events, but this has just kind of been the biggest and most prevalent stories in Japan. So yeah, it's very unfortunate, and yeah, like I said, my thoughts go out to all the people and their families. So yeah, with that, let's cut to the closing section. Hello everyone, welcome back to the closing section. I apologize for having a sort of gloomy first current events of the year. Hopefully the next current event sections are more upbeat. But yeah, these two incidents have just been very prevalent news here in Japan, so I thought that I would kind of inform you all as well. I have two phrases for you all as the word of the episode. The first of which being Yoi Otoshi o. This you would say before New Year's Eve, and it would mean kind of a good year to you, or I hope you have a good upcoming year. The second phrase is Akete omedetou gozaimasu, or Akeome for short, and you would say this after New Year's Eve. Kind of, it means Happy New Year, with the connotation that the new year has begun. So, for example, if you're at work and you're leaving for vacation and you're not going to see your coworkers again before the new year, you would say Yoi Otoshi o. It's like, hey, I hope you all have a good upcoming year. And then once you return to work the next year, you would say, oh, Akete omedetou gozaimasu, which means like, oh, Happy New Year kind of deal. When you say Akete omedetou gozaimasu, you could also add at the end for a third phrase, I guess, Kotoshi mo yoroshiku onegai shimasu, which means kind of pleasure to work with you this year as well, or let's keep working together this year. Your stat of the week is 22,970 yen. And this is kind of either a bonus or tax return I got during right before the New Year's. I was just casually looking at my bank account, found an extra 22,970 yen in there. I asked my supervisor, and he's like, yeah, tax return. I was like, oh, cool, great. I'll take it. I'm not sure if it's a bonus or tax return. Pretty sure it's a tax return, but yeah, good little boost for the new year. In any case, thank you all for listening to the first episode of Season 2, the first episode of 2024. Please do consider subscribing if you're already subscribed. I love you. You're amazing. But yeah, I'll be back in 2 weeks. Happy New Year, everyone. Happy 2024. Per Aspera Ad Astra.